Texas A&M is the most underrated team in the SEC.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Ultimate GM. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. I'm sold, ladies and gentlemen. Texas A&M is the most underrated team in the Southeastern Conference. I'm a believer of this. There was an article over at CBS Sports that gave the most overrated and underrated teams in the SEC. And the first team listed under the most underrated teams in the SEC was Texas A&M. And I'm going to read the blurb from this article here in a minute. But to me, the reason this is so significant and why I think it's so true is, and it's so powerful that this is, people are predicting this, is that Texas A&M is ranked inside the top 20. You know, to me, knowing the Aggies are the 20th best team in college football according to the AP poll, to me, I think that some folks, some college football analysts would be quick to be on the other side of this argument and say, hey, Texas A&M is overrated. Why are they 20? We do this every year. They're talented, new coach. They're overrated. You would expect to see a lot of that, knowing people's opinions on Texas A&M football. But that wasn't the case. Despite being ranked 20th and being a team ranked that high in the AP poll, CBS Sports still believes that the Aggies are underrated. And I really do believe that that means a lot. I really am taking strong opinions away from that. ESPN played a video. Why does that keep happening? But I'm really taking away strong opinions from this. So I want to read this blurb and kind of, explain why I think this is so important, continue to do so, and talk about two teams that were listed in the overrated category that I think could be huge for the Aggies. So it says, Texas A&M, there's a negative image swirling around Texas A&M after the whole Jimbo Fisher fiasco, which is understandable. And yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen. It was a very public, messy situation that saw some prolific players leave the program in the aftermath, but the Aggies nailed the rebound higher. As a rookie head coach, Mike Elko won 9 games in his first year at Duke. Mind you, that was one fewer win than Duke had in the 3 years leading up to his hiring. He still managed to win 7 games in 23 with a revolving door at quarterback and a list of significant injuries a mile long. So, yes, he should do very well with the Texas A&M program, where he inherits one of the SEC's best young signal callers in Connor Wigman and a roster still with a ton of solid recruiting from the Fisher era. Don't be surprised if he matches Fisher's top regular season win total, 8 in year 1. Now, once again, I think Coach Elko is going to win 9 games this year. And those of you that watched the SEC preview show, if you haven't, go check it out. It's on my channel. There was 3 different tiers to it. There was the guys listed as the front runners in the SEC, the kind of underrated middle of the pack teams, which is the one I was in, and then the not great teams, which was segment 3. So, but go check that out. It was a ton of fun. Get to chop it up, talk about football with some other SEC hosts. There were some very important. We had the LSU host in there. We had the Missouri host in there, which are two of the more important games on Texas A&M's schedule. So that was a fun little thing. So go check that out if you didn't get a chance to see it yesterday. But I really took strong opinions away from Texas A&M being underrated. I'll be honest with you. When I opened that article, when I saw this headline, I would have bet $50 on Texas A&M being one of the teams listed overrated. I just would have. I just think a lot of people are looking at this team knowing that it's a new head coach, knowing that there was a lot of transition, a lot of player turnover, a lot of new guys coming in from the portal, would look at this team and go, yeah, Texas A&M is probably a tad bit overrated being ranked 20th. I would have fully expected that. So seeing a legitimate publication of CBS Sports project the Aggies as an underrated team while being ranked 20th really does mean a lot to me. And the two teams that are ranked in the overrated category that I think could play a role for Texas A&M are LSU and Missouri. Listen, y'all have heard me break down this schedule enough where it's got to be, oh, here he goes again. But, the reason for bringing this up, the good news is, ladies and gentlemen, we have football in 9 days. It really is not setting in. I was on X, Twitter yesterday, scrolling, and, I was talking about the Sunday Night Football. I heard the Sunday Night Football song come on, and I was just like, man, we are almost there. We're almost there. Oh, also, Tyreek Hill or CeeDee Lamb with number 2 overall pick. Do y'all have any contract concerns? Let me know that. Fantasy football, big drafts coming up on Saturday. But I think that LSU and Missouri being listed overrated, those are the two games that are the home games that are most winnable, in my opinion. Those are the most winnable of, or excuse me, the most winnable of the challenging home games that we've discussed during this offseason. Your 4 are Notre Dame, Texas, Missouri, LSU. I think LSU and Missouri are the two most winnable. Now, listen, I think the scary part of both these teams with LSU, you have quarterback in Nussmeier, who, once again, I'm high on. I am a Nussmeier guy. I think he's going to be a great player, but he is still unproven. We have to see it. We've seen him once. You know what I mean? And this stuff can happen. And in Missouri, I'm in on Missouri. I think they're going to be a good football team. I think that Coach Drinkwitz has them kind of here to stay. I don't see them going anywhere. I don't think they're going to be one of those teams that they have a great year and then, adios, we'll see you later. I don't think they're going to be like that. But a lot of people do. And if those two things happen, Nussmeier proves to not be as good as we thought, and Missouri is a one-hit wonder, Texas A&M's chance at 9 wins increases a whole lot. And that makes the games against Auburn and Florida a lot. It takes the stress off you a little bit if those two teams don't end up being all that. And actually, Auburn was listed as another team overrated, ironically, which helps the Aggies as well, because that's one of the we've discussed is a tough road game for the Aggies. But I agree that while Texas A&M is ranked top 20 and people are starting to believe in Coach Elko, people are starting to believe in the future of this program, I still think there's a lot of folks that when I say, yeah, I think the Aggies have a chance to win 9 games, they laugh in my face. And I think that some, the people that are understand the why there get it. You know what I mean? This Texas A&M football team can win 9 football games. They can. If Missouri and LSU end up being super overrated, maybe they can win 10. This is a lot based on schedule. It's a lot based on how good of a coach I think Coach Elko is. It's a lot based on the talent on the roster. There's a lot that goes into my opinion on that. But I agree, Texas A&M is the most underrated team in the SEC. And here in about 9 days against Notre Dame, the Aggies are going to get to prove why. On yesterday's show, we talked about the two deep projections on offense. We're going to do the same thing for defense today. We'll do that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Ibata. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibata and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all your summer essentials. Ibata is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Right now, Ibata is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibata by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibata app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege. So we have another article here from Aggies Wire that breaks down the defensive two deep. So we're going to run through this and I'm going to share opinions. Do I agree? Do I disagree? I agree on a lot here, to be honest. I agree on a lot more here than I did yesterday's with the offense. Now, I didn't disagree on a ton. A little bit on the offensive line. And in all honesty, the offensive line was where I had issues. It really was the only spot. But I had, some issues there. And I saw y'all agree with that in the comments. So getting started here, defensive end, projected starter, Nick Scorton. Not a rocket science take there, ladies and gentlemen. I think we can all agree that Nick Scorton is probably going to start for this football team. If you disagree, let me know in the YouTube comments, and you better come with a darn good reason. And then the projected backup is Cassius Howell, a guy who Coach Bateman could not stop saying positive things about at the press conference on Saturday. It seems like Cassius Howell, the question was, would he be able to come do it in the SEC? And it sounds like the adjustment is going very well for the Bowling Green transfer, a guy who I think could put up a solid amount of sacks. Then in your contending names, you've got Malik Sia, a name that, we've talked about this offseason, not a ton. He's got the frame, the height, the slenderness, that frame to go and get a lot of sacks and be a real problem coming off the edge and slower offensive tackles have trouble blocking them. But so yeah, I could see him having a role this year. Not a huge one, but a role. And then Solomon Williams, the freshman, is another guy that I think is done a lot well this offseason. He has a very bright future ahead of him. I'm really excited to see what he ends up doing because he is going to be an absolute star. I believe that. Is it this year? Not sure, but he's going to be a star. Then we start to get in the middle. Projected starter at nose tackle, we got here is DJ Hicks. And I'm not sure how I feel about this. I think it's very possible. I just think because they have listed as the projected backup Albert Regis, and I've heard a lot more positive things from the coaching staff about Regis. Both of these players are talented, and both of them are going to play. So who goes out there first and who comes in and rotates, it doesn't really matter a ton, but it's still going to be interesting to see who ends up being the guy out there. And then contending names is Samu, the big guy in the middle, very talented for his size. He's a guy, I think, one of the more underrated players on this roster, Samu is. I mean, he's just a talented, athletic freak, and I think he's going to bump into some serious snaps this year. But Hicks and Regis, I think you could make this a 1A, 1B. I think they're quite interchangeable and very talented. And actually, the analysis here says This is a tough one to pin down as former 5-star prospect DJ Hicks gets the nod on our end to earn the starting spot, but veteran tackle Albert Regis is right there with him. However, both players are expected to rotate throughout the season. Agree there. That's pretty much what I just said. So I agree with that analysis there. Then at defensive tackle, Shamar Turner listed a projected starter. Nothing crazy there. We all agree on that. Projected backup is Rodas Johnson. I think Rodas Johnson's a player who really could. I love his versatility. He can play all over the defensive line, and that's great. The Wisconsin transfer. He's a guy that we've just heard comes in, works hard, gets things done, goes home. I like the way he plays the game. He's a guy that is going to have a role for this team, and I think he's going to be a player that isn't one of the main guys on the defensive line, but every single game you see him making a big play for the Aggies. Contending names, you got Gabriel Brenlow-Dindy, another guy who I think could really maybe take a step forward this year and play a role. I mean, the flashes are there, the signs are there, the talent's there. He's a guy who at any given point could break out. Then at defensive end, we've got Shamar Stewart. Once again, not really a surprise there. As a projected backup, you got Rylan Kennedy. Continued names, you got Josh Shalsar, the transfer, and then Kendall Jackson, the freshman. The analysis here, again, A&M's defensive in-depth is simply unbeatable. As junior, Shamar Stewart is primed for a breakout season after a strong fall camp. Sophomore defensive end Rylan Kennedy possesses borderline elite traits as a pass rusher after adding more muscle mass this offseason. Agree with all that. I love the upside all around in this defensive line. I mean, you got Scorton, you got Shamar Turner, you got Hicks and Regis, but then the upside guys in Shamar Stewart, in Rylan Kennedy, a guy we've talked a lot about, Cassius Howell. There's so many defensive linemen that have super high upside. So I am really excited to see how those guys end up playing this year, because I do think it's going to be special. Then at linebacker, at Mike, we've got Taryn York as a starter. Once again, nothing surprising about that. As the projected backup, Scooby Williams, contending names, Jordan Lockhart, and Martell Harris. So we talked about it. There are really three guys battling for that second spot. Obviously, Scooby Williams being listed here means that they believe he's going to lose this battle. And based on what we've heard of late, I don't disagree with that at all. And Terry York's the guy. He's the captain of this defense. He's the captain of this team. He's an all-around outstanding football player. And I'm really anxious to see how good of a sophomore season he has this year. Then at will, Solomon DeShields is the projected starter. And that's the vibe I've been getting. I've been saying that for weeks now. I think you're going to end up seeing Solomon DeShields be the other starting linebacker next to York. That's been the offseason debate. Who's it going to be? Who is going to be the guy standing next to York when the Aggies face Notre Dame? And I think it's going to be Solomon DeShields, a guy who's just flat out experienced. Lot of reps, lot of, just played a lot of college football. And that's a great thing at linebacker, a position where instincts and knowing where to be, being in the right spot at the right time is so, so critical. So I think Solomon Shields is going to be great. Then as the projected backup there is Damian Sanford. Once again, the other guy who is competing for that job. I do now feel better about the depth at linebacker, knowing you have Sanford and you have Scooby Williams, two guys that give you just solid depth at the position. Continuing names, Tristan Jernigan and Chance Johnson. So you got Tristan Jernigan and Jordan Lockhart, two of the freshmen, talented players in this linebacker room that give you a ton of upside. So this linebacker room, I feel a lot better now than I did 3 months ago about this room. I think it's going to be a strength of this team, and I think the depth is there, knowing these freshmen are developing quicker than maybe we thought, which is very, very exciting. We're going to break down the two deep in the secondary coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Hey, Locked On Aggies fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you are going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. It's an amazing game and simulation. You get to step in the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Aggies? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free and has no ads and is 100% playable offline, which is awesome. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer to Locked On Aggies fans. Use the promo code Locked On CFB. That's Locked On CFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football Head Coach, begin your coaching legacy today. So moving to the secondary in this article, at nickel, it sounds like Tariq Chappelle is going to be the nickel. You know, he played there at some points during his college career so far, and he likes it there. And we heard him say that to the media. He really does like it over there. So I think you're going to see Tariq Chappelle end up being the guy at nickel, and I think he's going to be great. The projected backup there is Jaden Hill, another one of the transfers. And then in continuing name is Bravion Rogers. I love the depth there. I think Jaden Hill's a guy that we heard a lot of positive things about. You know, the former Florida corner that came with Coach Bateman. And then Bravion Rogers is one of the young guys up and coming who I think is going to be a very talented player overall. Then at corner, projected starter is Will the Blanket Lee. Projected backup is Javon Thomas. And then contending names is Donovan Saunders. I was high on Donovan Saunders for a while, the Cal Poly transfer, and I still think he's got a high upside. Javon Thomas was one of the young guys that was on the field a lot last year and had some flashes, had some moments you went, ooh, don't, you know what I mean? Don't love that. And then Will Lee is the guy that came in, and he just has so much upside. Last year there were some things he didn't do great at Kansas State, but it looks like he's developing. He's playing better football, and I think he's going to be great for the Aggies. At free safety, Bryce Anderson, no surprise there. Projected backup is Marcus Ratcliffe, and then the contending names is Jared Kerr. I'll tell you this. I think that Bryce Anderson being back at his natural position is going to be huge for this defense. I think it's going to make him a better player, and it's going to make this Texas A&M secondary much better. At the other safety, Trey Jones, the Central Michigan transfer, it's kind of been trending that way. Trey Jones has been doing a lot well. I think he's going to end up being the starter. I agree with this. He's doing a lot well, and he's just flat out looking good. Then you got the projected backup is Dalton Brooks, and the contending names, the young guy, the freshman, Miles Davis. Excited to see all of these guys, and I think Davis is a high upside. Brooks is still a guy, another younger guy that has a high upside. But Trey Jones, I agree, is going to win this job. And then at the other corner spot, you got Des Ricks as the projected starter. BJ Mays is the projected backup. And then continuing names, once again, Donovan Saunders. I agree with Des Ricks. The coaching staff seems to be fully buying into his upside and how good he is going to be. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do this year. The only thing that's going to be interesting there is where does Terry Bussey work in the secondary? Where is he in this room? And I think we'll find out more about that the next time that Coach Elko takes the podium. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Aggies, on Friday, we are going to break down the Notre Dame game. We're going to start breaking it down top to bottom. If you have any thoughts on the Notre Dame game you want to share, let me know in the YouTube comments, and we'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. Really, really appreciate it. Hope everyone has an outstanding rest of their Thursday, and we'll see you Friday right here on Locked On Aggies.